I was supposed to then get, I went out to dinner with my wife, and I ended up, that night, I found some blood in my ear. So I called him the next day, and he says, well, we need to get in here and see it. So he saw these polyps in my bladder, and he says, I'll schedule you to just get them out of there. So I went ahead and had this TURB, it's called transurethral resection of the bladder. And what they do is they go in there and they take out the tumor and they biopsy it. And it ended up where, so he did that, and he says, well, we'll set you up. And I went back to see him, and he says, you've got high-grade aggressive cancer. And at that point, he says, but we'll set you up with these BCG treatments, it's called, where it's supposed to get rid of the rest of the cancer cells. So I went in and did that. In the meantime, I started praying, because I started doing some research on it. I thought, you know what, I don't know if I can do this or handle this in this way. So I went ahead and I started praying for the wisdom of Solomon to know basically what caused my cancer and how to cure it. So in the same time, now that I found out I had cancer, I said, you know what, I need to go see a real urologist. I was not really happy with or oncologist. I wasn't happy with my urologist. He wasn't basically giving me the answers I wanted. When I would tell him that certain foods would irritate my bladder, he'd say, well, then don't eat them. And I says, well, okay. I says, well, how about, what should I eat? Well, anything you want. And I said, well, what causes cancer? He says, well, smoking and being exposed to environmental toxins are the #1 cause. And I says, well, okay, I don't smoke and I haven't been exposed to environmental toxins. So, what else causes it? Well, we really don't know. So, in the meantime, I said, I need to go see a real oncologist. So, I went to the Cleveland Clinic and found one of the best oncologists there. So, in the meantime, I go through these BCG treatments, and I'm changing my diet. In the meantime, I'm finding that certain foods would irritate my bladder, so I started avoiding these foods. And in the meantime, I started testing when I was doing the BCG, they were testing my urine before for microscopic blood, and I thought, you know what, let me see if there's any correlation. So I went and got these test strips, and I started testing my urine for microscopic blood to see what foods would react. And then I found out that a lot of foods, especially like red dye, which was a major, major irritant for me. Matter of fact, there was one bout I had where I had eaten Cocoa Puffs one night, and I woke up the next morning with visible blood in my urine. And when I went and read what I ate, and I saw red 40 on it, it popped out. And any time I ate anything with red 40, I would notice the microscopic blood in my urine would go up. Then also, I went and I started doing research. I started eating. I found out that there were a lot of GMO foods out there that were irritating my bladder also. So I was like, okay, I guess what I have to do now is go to organic. And like it says there, as our grandparents called it, it's real food. And it's what food was before they added all the carcinogens, the pesticides, the herbicides, the fertilizers, everything else they add on there, and then the preservatives and all the other chemicals they add in there. So we started switching to all organic food at that time also. And again, I'm going through these BCG treatments, and I'm doing really good. So in the meantime, by the way, the BCG is where they take this tuberculosis vaccine. They would catheterize me and they inject this solution into my bladder. I would have to retain it for 2 hours, and then I would have to wait basically 2 hours before I can void. And when I did void in the toilet, I would have to wait 15 minutes after I had it bleached to flush it down a sanitary sewer. Now, being in the sewer business, I just never sat with me, but I did it nonetheless because that was the protocol that was supposed to eradicate the cancer. So, went ahead, we switched all organic food. I'm finding all these foods are making a difference. And then my wife, who had a rash her whole life since she was 6 years old, when we switched over, because I told her one day, I said, I want you to buy all organic. She says, well, okay, no problem. She says, well, for everybody. She says, everyone? I said, well, yeah. I said, now that I found out what GMOs were in the food and all the pesticides and herbicides, I said, it's irritating. I said, if it's going to kill me, it's going to kill her. Like, I don't want my kids eating it and my family eating it. So she said, okay, fine. So she did. This rash that she had her whole life mysteriously now disappears. Once she's eaten, now there's nothing else to agitate. So, in the meantime, I go out and I start doing more research. And I find out that, it's a little hard to see on the chart here, but all roads basically lead to radical cystectomy. And I started doing more research. And again, the survival rates are in the 60s, and they may be even some rate right there. The 10-year survival rate would be in the 50 percentile. I'm thinking, okay, and so I go back to my urologist or oncologist at Cleveland Clinic. I said, okay, well, I'm starting feeling good. I says, I did the BCG treatments, I said, changed my diet, I'm doing really good now, I'm feeling good, my bladder's feeling good, those symptoms are diminishing, and I still had some microscopic blood in my urine, but in the meantime, I didn't have the urgency and the frequency as much. So I was feeling really good. Again, I had more energy. So I told him, I said, you're not going to find anything. But he said, well, look, you have a high-grade aggressive cancer. Because of the aggressiveness of it, that if it reoccurs, I'm going to recommend radical cystectomy with needle. And that's basically, it's 5 major surgeries in one. They remove the bladder, prostate, lymph nodes, 4 feet of my small intestines to reconstruct and make a neobladder out of this intestine. So I went ahead and I says, again, I'm doing more research and I'm thinking, what's the quality of life? And then it's all cause and effect. The average cost to treat cancer patients is $400,000 to $1.8 million for cause of death. Then I read that 27% of people who do absolutely nothing get cured of cancer. I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to fall in that category. So in the meantime, these are basically I found the way, the way that they treat it is cut, burn, and poison. You have chemo, radiation, and basically the surgery is what they want to do for me. By the way, they wanted to do that, remove my bladder, prostate, lymph nodes, and 4 feet of my intestines before they did the chemo and radiation. So then, again, it's all about the money. This little joke here says, by Jove, I found a cure for cancer, and cutting off our funding, the hell you have. So basically, again, in the modern industry now, in 1900, 1 in 25 people died of cancer. Now, 1 in 4 people are going to be dying of cancer in our lifetime. And 41% of Americans will eventually be diagnosed with cancer. So that's almost like you or the person next to you is going to develop cancer in their lifetime. In 1964, again, 1 in 214 contracted cancer. Today, it's 1 in 3 females, 1 in 2 males. So again, and where it says it's not uncommon for the average American to test between 4 and 5 in the pH. So I started doing my research and I started looking in the pH. And again, I was doing my test strips. I was testing my urine for microscopic blood. But then in the meantime, I noticed on there my pH was also low. So in the meantime, again, more research and basically this low oxygen level is one of the reasons why people have cancer. And again, I also found out though when you get the body above pH of 8.5 that the cancer rapidly dies and the body starts healing. So then on the average chemotherapy and radiation effective only 4 to 5% for long-term recovery. And those odds just, like I said, it was hard to accept. So then I went to go see a holistic doctor. Basically I said, I need to change my diet even more. So I'm changing, I'm eating all these better foods. Again, I'm eating nuts and so forth. I'm eating mostly in the alkaline side diet here. This is a chart here that shows alkaline-based food, so I'm eating most of the vegetables. And at that time, I was eating pretty much everything on the right side. I didn't go real radical yet, but again, I was eating pretty much trying to get alkaline in my body, but not being too successful. I was taking supplements, doing really, really good, feeling good. So I went to my oncologist and says, okay, time to have my cystoscopy. So I went ahead in there and basically I told him, I said, when he did do it, I says, you have to knock me out. So he says, I said, well, if you do find anything, what are you going to do? So we'll take biopsies and so forth. So he went in and I was, like I said, I went under, and when I woke up, my wife was all upset and crying. And I says, well, what happened? And she says, well, they found 4 new ones bigger than the first ones. I'm thinking to myself, right away I says, I'm not having a surgery. Because I knew what the doctor said. He says, if it reoccurs, you have to have the surgery. So I says, so what did he say? He says, pretty much, he says, you're an anxious person and that, you need to have these out. And I says, so what else? He says, well, he drew a diagram on the board. He says, pretty much, here's his bladder, here's this, and he has to have these things out. So I says, well, doctor comes in afterwards and I says, well, how bad is it? He says, well, it doesn't look good. I says, so how bad is it? He says, well, I says, so what do we do? He says, well, do I do BCG treatments? He goes, well, no, they were ineffective. I said, so, okay, what are my other options? He says, you can get a second opinion. I go, you are my second opinion. I go, you mean a third opinion? He goes, and he just looks at me. And I said, well, how's the rest of my bladder work? He goes, well, the rest of the bladder works good. I told my dad, I says, well, look, until we've exhausted every conceivable option, that's not even on the table. Because it's your choice. So he calls me back. I leave the hospital. Actually, that night they sent in a shrink nurse to talk to me. And he says, you know, you're healthy, you'll be fine, you can go through this, you know, you'll be good. I says, no, you don't understand. Psychologically, I can't do that. I can't go through this surgery. There's got to be a way. So again, I'm turning it more over to prayer. And I go back home, and then the doctor calls me up and says, well, Mr. Mara, says, you know, the pathology report came back. They were T1 grade, which is, again, it came back as a high-grade aggressive cancer. He said, I'd like you and your wife to come on in for a consultation. I said, well, I'll get back to you. I don't know. I thought to myself, I'm calling back. So, meantime, I had to go do more research. And basically, I found out, again, my body was acidic. How do I get my body alkaline? So I started going on a more radical diet at that point. And at that time, I saw, you know, what happens is that, you know, I found out that, again, I was testing my urine for test strips, and my microscopic blood was there, it was green, it was always there, but my alkalinity was always orange, which it needed to be green. I needed to reverse those two because, again, mine was always acid. So I started taking some baking soda and water to try to alkalize my body, which it started doing, but I wasn't able to get up there high enough and maintain it. But again, nonetheless, it was part of my regimen. I was doing it in the morning and in the evening. I was drinking a lot of water and so forth. And then one day I went into to Mass one day, and the reading in the Bible was out of the book of Daniel. And when Daniel was supposed to go into the king's service, he was supposed to eat at the king's table all the choice foods and so forth. And he says, just give my men and me, just give us vegetables and water for 10 days and see how we compare to the rest of the men. Well, after 10 days, not only were they healthier, they were stronger and wiser than all the other men. So the guy gave them all understanding, wisdom, and visions and proficiency. So that was the diet I said I had to go on. It was basically a more radical diet because I was eating, again, I was eating healthy organic foods, but I was eating fruits, I was eating breads, I was eating, you know, they were all organics, I was eating a lot of these acid foods, but so I had to go more radical. And again, go back to this chart, it had to be all the stuff now only in the vegetable column, and it was on the alkaline side only. So I was eating mainly my go-to foods were kale, cucumber, celery, spinach, avocados. I had some peppers and broccoli. Mostly it was a lot of broccoli and a lot of juicing, of course, also. But I'm doing all this juicing, I'm doing this baking soda, I'm trying to get this alkalinity up, but it's not working. I mean, it's working, but it's not sustaining, it's not getting up high enough. Something, you know, what else do I need to do? So, you know, I'm doing my research and I'm reading these books, and I'm reading The pH Miracle with Dr. Robert Young, who is talking about eating the foods and so forth. And then I'm also reading, it's called The Only Answer to Cancer with Dr. Leonard Caldwell. And he talks about also the foods and juicing and so forth, but he then starts talking about stress, how stress creates acidosis in the body. And again, there's many types of stress. You've got the physical, the chemical, and the emotional stress. So again, the physical stress, I kept my exercising to a minimum because, again, every time I would exercise or exert myself, I noticed it would irritate my bladder, and I would get those symptoms, so I would back off on that and figure, okay, that's also stressing my body, creating acidosis. Chemical, I knew I wasn't exposed to any chemicals. I basically cleaned up everything. I was using all natural shampoos, all natural soaps. I was using, basically I was using any chemicals at all, or any, you know, deodorants or anything in my body at all that can harm it. So I stayed away from all of it. So I got into the emotional part. And of course, after being diagnosed with cancer, you might as well be diagnosed with a death sentence, because if you make it to 5 years, you become a cancer survivor. I'm thinking, so of course, my stress that I had that basically was even multiplied even 100-fold. So what type of stress? Well, there's a lot of different stresses out there. And again, it was like, how do you deal with it? And there's one up there, it's anxious, you know, right up here, and that's, again, what I was labeled by the doctors at the hospital. Well, the only way I could basically deal with the stress, I mean, being, again, Christian, and I said, well, time to go to God for that one. So I basically went and repented, and I just let it, I just put it all in His hands. And I gave it all to Him, and I prayed, basically just for the wisdom again to know, and for the strength to endure and be able to do it. So at that point, I started going into, and that meant I had to forgive people. I didn't want to forgive. I let go a lot of my anger. I stopped driving. Driving always stressed me out. Basically watching the news was really, really stressing me out. I just stopped watching anything negative. Just if it was good, funny, I'd watch it. If not, because I read that a guy who had cancer, he was given 6 months, he says, he just went out and says, if I'm not done, I'll go watch funny movies the rest of my life. And he started watching funny movies. Before you know it, he's alive today. He beat the cancer. Because again, I found that stress was one of the major things causing the acidosis in the body, lowering my body's pH, and therefore my body wasn't able to heal. It's like having a dirty pond and expect to put your hand in it if it's cut and expect it to heal. It'll never heal. It'll just get infected and get worse and so forth. Well, but once we take and we dress it, we clean it, and we put it in, and we clean it and leave it alone, the body will then repair itself. And again, the body can only repair itself when it's alkaline. And that's why a lot of people who, there's these, I believe in miracles all the time. People think that, again, I was a miracle. Well, yes, I was a miracle. The miracle is the Lord showed me what caused my cancer and how to keep from coming back, and so I can share that with others. But the thing is that why people have miracles when they go like to Lourdes or Fatima or all these other holy places, because when they go there, they find that peace that surpasses all understanding. They purge everything. They give it to God because they have nothing else. And when they do that, it creates an alkaline environment. So then I started again eating, all the various foods that were alkaline, pretty much on the system here. And then when I was juicing, and it was all organic juicing the celery, juicing the ginger, the garlic, and so forth. So I'm getting all this, I'm doing it, and every day, actually in the beginning, I started going through almost like a flu type symptoms, a detoxification in my body. And then after about a week or two of that, then every day I started feeling better and better and better and better, until basically about 3 months go by, and I says, well, asked the doctor, he says, well, I called up the doctor and said, I'd like to have a cystoscopy. And I said, this time I want to be in your office, I want to be awake for it. Because at that point, I really felt good. I was not getting up at all at night. The symptoms were pretty much all diminished. And so I went ahead and I went in there and I saw it. And the last visit I told him that I'd never have a cystoscopy awake. And I told him, I said, well, you never should have said never, huh? Well, he wasn't too keen on that. And he went in and he's looking around. And so we see, I'm looking right with him and I'm looking at the screen. And again, I'm no expert because, but I see these 3 little areas and they're like just healed over, like new skin healed over. And I'm thinking, okay, he cut out some tumors. And then we don't see anything else. I see a couple scars actually, and that was it. So everything else looked good. He pulls it out and he says, so Mr. Murray, everything looks good except those 3 areas of concern. I look at him and go, okay. And he says, those can be carcinoma in situ, beginning of cancer. I says, yeah, I know what that is. And he says, so we can biopsy those. I go, no, you're not. And he goes, he looks at me and says, matter of fact, I think they look pretty good. I says, consider what I've been through, 2 TURBs, BCG. I says, matter of fact, next time I come, it'll be pristine. Now, I don't know, it's like, now I'm no doctor again, but being in the construction business, I've seen enough videotapes of sewers, and I look for defects in sewers, and again, I didn't see a defect in my bladder, sorry. So, in the meantime, I go back 4 months later, and he goes in again, and he looks, and he first says, I see inflammation. I go, where? He goes, there. I go, where? He goes, there. I go. And there's nothing there. And I go, okay, and he looks around. If you see a couple scars, those red spots are gone now. And again, the red spots were like if you ever got cut, or say you gouged a piece of skin out of your skin, or your arm or something, and then it heals back. It's a little pink there until it completely disappears after a month or 2. Well, that's what it looked like in there. There was no bump or anything. So I'm thinking to myself, how many people need biopsy to create more of a problem? So I went ahead and I says, there's nothing. And he looks, can't find it. And then he says, well, your prostate looks a little enlarged.
Oh, my God.
I go, it does? And he goes, well, for a man your age. I go, well, it doesn't look like it to me. Of course, what else am I going to say? And he goes, well, we can check that out. I says, okay, fine. So he pulls the scope out of there, I roll over, he checks the prostate, and he says, well, everything looks pretty good. I guess I'll see you, and I goes, well, I guess I'll see you in 4 months. I go, for what? He goes, to make sure it doesn't come back. I says, doctor, I'm not worried about it coming back. Okay? And I says, matter of fact, cancer is the best thing to happen. And he looks at me and I says, really? I says, look, I was way too stressed out, and I was eating all the wrong foods. I says, I needed to make a major lifestyle change. I says, you know what? I says, and I told him how stress creates acidosis and eating the right foods and alkalizing the body. And I just went through a real quick, what I talked about now, through with it. And he looks at, he looks at me and says, well, I'm going to tell your wife the good news. Okay. And he walks out. He goes and tells my wife, and he says, Mrs. Murray, he says, my wife says, it's a life-threatening situation. I was like, look, he says, well, he doesn't want to, he goes, he wants to take a wait and see. And he goes, well, like I said, as long as, I can't remember. Anyway, so he says, basically she says, well, it's done. And I go back home, and like I said, at that point, I'm feeling good. So since then, now what have I been doing? Pretty much what causes cancer? Again, it says cancer is caused by stress and the foods we eat. And when it starts out, it starts as inflammation. And, because again, it's all about not just what we eat, when we eat it, why we're eating it, or how we're eating it, but it's also where it comes from. But most important, it's also our state of mind when we eat the food. What I've noticed with me is that when I'm under some type of stress and I eat food that is not alkaline food, that is not vegetable or plant-based foods, I will feel the effect on my body more so than when I eat that food when I'm happy and my body's in an alkaline state. It's almost like if I wash my hands with bleach. If I don't have any cuts on it, it's not going to hurt me. But if I've got cuts or sores on it, it's going to hurt. And it's the same thing with our bodies. When we keep our bodies alkaline, by again, keeping the stress level down and keeping eating the right foods, pretty much the body, you can eat those other foods and the body can resist those foods and take care of it and will process that. It's just when our bodies are on overload. And again, what ends up happening is, Hippocrates says, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. We self-medicate ourselves with food. I mean, let's face it, the stuff that tastes good is the stuff that hurts us the most. And, we go there, we get that instant pleasure, but then again, it's empty, and what it does is it nutritionally depletes our body and so forth. So, again, the reverse is also is the fact that when we use that same food, the plant-based food, to alkalize our body, then we no longer crave food or we're hungry. For example, today, I only had a juice all day long. I'm not hungry in the least. I've got a lot of energy. It's when I'll have maybe a little bagel in the morning, I'll add that to my diet, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can't keep my eyes open. So it's not just the foods we eat, it's the type of food we eat. And again, when I juice, it's all organic, so I'm getting all the vitamins and nutrients and minerals my body needs. And what I've been doing also is experimenting. So, to keep my cancer from coming back, the days that I'm the most stressed out are the days I really watch what I eat. And that's when I really have to be careful, because again, it's not that, just the ill effect that it does have on my body, it's also that I have to worry, I don't want to make sure that the cancer doesn't come back, because again, that would be the recipe. It's not just because I was doing the research and I was wondering why some people would get cancer, or why some people that had cancer went on a diet that would work, and some people that had cancer went on a diet that wouldn't work. Like Steve Jobs, for example. Well, when Steve Jobs went on his first diet, when he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, he left Apple, he basically went on an all vegan, plant-based diet, vegan diet, and he beat cancer. Well, he goes back to work, stays on the vegan diet, he's doing okay, and all of a sudden, but now the cancer comes back. So what does he do? He goes back on the plant-based diet, strict, but it doesn't work. So in the meantime, then he starts doing the conventional methods, and then before you know it, he's doing the chemo, the radiation, and he's no longer here. Well, why didn't it work for him? So I'm doing the research, and I'm thinking, what he never did was give up the stress the second time. Again, if the body can't heal when we're under stress, because when we're under stress, it's like creating that dirty pond environment. bacteria and algae, the cancer is just going to thrive and breed and grow. It's going to be out of control. It's like, I took care of a swimming pool for 18 years of my life. And every day, as long as I keep that pool balanced, the bacteria and algae don't grow. But the minute you let the pH go down and you keep it out of balance, the algae grows. It's a bear to get out of there. Because sometimes it takes 2-3 days to, by the time you're shocking and using all these other things to clean it. And again, it's the same thing with our body. When we allow our bodies to become acidic, that's what ends up happening. Because everything we eat, either we're feeding disease or we're fighting disease. Again, and it's all about, again, what weakens our immune system. There's so many environmental toxins out there, household chemicals, processed foods, and so forth. And then again, when we're exposed to this stuff, if our bodies are alkaline, it's okay, but it's when we're under stress, that's when these have the most effect on our body and really hurt our bodies. And that's why it hurts some people, it doesn't hurt others. Because again, it depends on how our immune system is to respond. In 3 years, I haven't gotten a cold, I haven't gotten a cough, I haven't gotten a flu, I haven't gotten anything. It's like, if you keep the immune system 100%, you're not going to get sick. And everyone else in my, that I'm with are sick, they're coughs and colds, especially this winter, it was a bad winter. And again, it's just keeping the body immune system 100%, and that's how you keep off all illnesses. And again, I can eat what I want. I've been eating things, I've been cheating a lot. When people say, well, what do you eat now? And I call myself a cheating vegan, is what I am. Because again, and I cheat, lately I've been cheating quite a bit, but then again, when I do, I feel it. I feel lack of energy, I feel tired, I get weak. I found out, because then once I went on this diet, I started introducing foods back. And I found out, because I used to wake up every morning, for example, I had to roll out of bed, my lower back was killing me, okay, sharp shooting pain. I couldn't wash my hair in the morning some days, I couldn't lift my arms up to wash my hair. I couldn't, I always had like pains over here, pains in my arms, my knees were bad, if I bent down, I couldn't get back up. I had headaches, migraines, so forth, I had a lot of psoriasis, dandruff, and dry skin, and cracked fingertips, and so forth. Well, and these would come and go, but I'm always dealing with these almost on a daily basis. So, in the meantime, at 45, I thought, I don't know how I'm going to make it to 50. Well, at 55 today, I wake up with no aches, pains, or ailments. I jump out of bed like I'm 20 years old. And the difference is basically eating the right foods. And I found now when I started introducing other foods, for example, chicken, I would get that lower back, my shoulder pain would come right back again. And then one day I ate pork, okay, with some ham and some sausage, and I get a pain right in my sternum. It feels like it's actually like me having a heart attack. As a matter of fact, I ate a fish sandwich a month ago from Wendy's. Never had a fish sandwich from Wendy's in my life. My daughter was going to get something from my son-in-law. I says, don't give me anything. She says, how about a fish sandwich? I said, all right, what's the harm, right? So I get a fish sandwich. I get that exact same pain here in my sternum. It was every time I go like this and I go to get up like this, it would just take my breath away. I thought I was having a heart attack. But if I didn't know better that I'm connected, because I knew that it had to be that fish, because it didn't affect me anywhere else. So I stopped eating it. Again, I only ate it the one time. A couple days later, the pain goes away. Month and a half goes by. Last Monday, my daughter had gone to, she's going to Wendy's again. Right away, of course, I'm sending, my son-in-law says, I'm sending, Marina to Wendy's. I says, I don't want it. And then 5 minutes go by, he didn't go yet, and I said, you know what, let me try another fish sandwich. Let me just see if it isn't, right? Sure enough to say, next day, I get that pain right here. And then to top it off, my daughter's birthday was the next day. My wife made this great carbonara with ham and peas in it, of course, and I eat that with the cream sauce. So good, and the pain just added to it and compounded. I had that pain till Saturday, the following Saturday, last Saturday. Now it's gone. I mean, it's completely gone. I haven't had ham, I haven't had that pork, or again, since then, for that fish sandwich. So I noticed again, when I ate too many carbs, so one night I went to bed, I had a couple pieces of whole wheat toast. Put it, and went to bed. The next morning I wake up, right around my nose here, get all bad, flakiness, like psoriasis. I get dandruff or flakiness up in my eyebrows and my hair, my scalp. I'm thinking, what is this? And it's just, again, and then if I stop eating, it goes away. I don't wake up with anything. I wake up perfectly clear. So it's only when I use certain foods. It's not all, some of it is, for example, God bless you, some of it is gluten, like high gluten. You'd say, okay, gluten is bad for you, right? Well, my uncle made pizza at his place, and it was a high gluten, he uses a high gluten flour. Guess what? It doesn't have the effect of it. I don't know why. why is it that? And then all of a sudden, the whole wheat, which is organic, has an effect on my body. You know, again, I'm still figuring all this out. All I know is that I've made a connection that basically we are what we eat. You know, there's no matter, you know, which way around it. And again, a lot of the foods today, you know, you got to look at it. I mean, the GMOs in the foods, the processed meats, the you know, you see the popcorn, the sodas, the diet foods, the beverages, the refined sugars. You know, all these things are, you know, even the farmed fish. And again, that I'm sure that fish I had from Wendy's was a farm-raised fish, and that's what's causing inflammation. And what happens is this, like in my body, why, like for example, animal protein will affect my back and my so forth, my body, is because animal proteins will create inflammation in the muscles. And in my body, being in construction, I worked a lot of my muscles in my lower back, my arms, and my shoulders, and so forth, and my knees throughout the years. And what happens, I built muscle and I built more blood vessels that carry blood flow to those areas. Well, when I eat these foods that have these certain animal proteins in them, like I'll eat that fish or that chicken, that animal protein to get into my blood system, get delivered to those areas where I have that muscle, and create an inflammation of those muscles. And what will happen is then that inflammation will put pressure on my nerves, and that's when basically it'll cause me the pain. And it's until I get rid of that inflammation does the pain go away. And when I eat the plant-based protein, you see people say, what do you do for protein? Well, what does a cow do for protein? You know, I mean, pretty much a cow eats grass. You know, and then they say strong as an ox. What does a cow ox eat? It's the same thing. You know, so they all get their protein from the grass. You know, Popeye, what did he eat? Spinach. You know, so I've noticed in my own body now, it's been over 3 years that I've been eating a plant-based diet, and I juice every single day, that I've got more strength in my muscles than I've ever had. I may have less muscle mass because I don't have the animal proteins that create the inflammation of those muscles, but my muscles are actually stronger than they were. And again, it's a good trade-off in my mind because my strength is pain-free. It's what comes with it. I wake up every morning now. I jump out of bed, I can lift my arms right up, my knees are perfect. I mean, I have no pain unless I hurt myself or stun myself or, you know, hit something, hit the wall or something. I mean, it's about it. Other than that, like I said, it's just eating, you know, the right foods. And then again, it's also eating the right foods, not just, we can cheat, but at certain times. Again, it's not just what we eat, you know, it's what state of mind we are when we eat that food. Again, stay away from a lot of the inflammatory foods because inflammation causes, or meat causes inflammation of the muscles and joints, which, you know, results in pain. Dairy causes congestion and inflammation of the upper respiratory system. And then, of course, they both create acidosis, which compromises the immune system. And it's also what I'm doing some research now, you know, look into it, is that it also depends on our blood type. I happen to be A positive, and an A positive blood type is basically should stay more of a vegetarian type diet. If you're O blood type, you should have a high protein more diet, and if you're a B, you would be more balanced, of course, and then a type AB would be a mixed diet in moderation. So, you know, again, I'm still researching that, and I do notice that when I do eat a vegetarian type place, or plant-based diet that is, that I feel the best. You know, when I do eat some of the dairy and stuff, I will get the congestion and so forth. And again, there's good foods, bad foods, you know, there's the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen you can find out there. I just eat the ones that are on the Clean 15 side and stay away from the Dirty Dozen at all costs. Again, these are just more slides that just show inflammation and so forth. These are just all foods. You have your anti-inflammatory foods there on the left, and then the inflammatory foods there on the right. And then these are here, all spices that basically heal the body also. Pretty much you've got ginger, curcumin, thyme, you've got rosemary, nutmeg, basil, cloves, cinnamon, garlic, turmeric. All these things are great, you know, spices that heal the body. I was doing a lot of these spices when I beat the cancer, especially the ginger, the garlic. I was doing the curcumin, the basil. And again, just juicing is very, very important. You know, why do we really, you know, what we really impacts the way we feel. You know, why I juice is because juicing builds the embryonic stem cells in our bodies. And it also gives us body instant energy, supports the immune system, and it also builds the body's blood count. And these basically these are all things where we'll just tell you that juicing optimizes the quantity of vegetables you consume. Now, it takes 1 pound of vegetables to make 1/8 ounces. Now, we're supposed to eat 4 pounds of vegetables a day. And that this way we get all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients our body needs. Well, to eat 4 pounds, I mean, it takes a lot of effort. But to juice 4 pounds, you're only talking 16 ounces, which is basically, like I said, so, right, like 32 ounces. So, I mean, it's easier to drink that. And that's what I drink every day. I'll juice 4 pounds of vegetables every day. And I drink them again. It's kept my cancer gone, even though I've gone through a lot of stress, in this past couple of years. And also, again, it gives my body the energy I need every day. I just look at it this way. I just tell people it's like vitamins, taking a multivitamin on steroids. Again, wheatgrass is another good, again, what does a cow eat? What does a bull eat? They eat grass. Wheatgrass provides, again, all, the chlorophyll. What chemo is to cancer, that's what chlorophyll is to cancer. Because cancer cannot stand chlorophyll. It's a natural form of chemotherapy. And when you give the body a lot of chlorophyll, it builds these stem cells in the body, which rebuilds the body. It also alkalizes the body so the body can heal. And then on top of it, like I said, it creates a hostile environment for the cancer to live in. It's just like having a clean swimming pool. Bacteria and algae just cannot grow or thrive in. Again, wheatgrass provides the nutritional equivalent of 2.5 pounds of green leafy vegetables, just in 1 ounce of juice. And again, what are the side effects? Well, it's a very powerful cleanser, so it will detoxify the body. So if you do it when you first start, you're supposed to start slow like anything else, because it will take the toxins out. And that's why when people are doing chemotherapy and they're doing things like this, it really works in a negative way. I mean, in a way, it's okay, but in a way, because again, you want to help build a system that the chemo destroys, but in the same vein, the chemo now, those cells that are being rebuilt, the healthy cells become aggressive cells to the chemo. The chemo usually, in most cases, doesn't differentiate between the aggressive good and bad cells, and it goes after those good cells just as well. So a lot of times it'll work negative. So I tell people, I go, look, you can't mix protocol. I go, either you're going to do the way the doctors are going to do, probably end up dead, sorry, or you can do it the other way, and basically, but it's a harder way. My father was the same way. He was having blood in his urine, and he was having frequency of urination. And he came and says, what do? I go, well, if you go to the doctor, and I told him, I says, they're going to end up scoping you, going to find probably tumors and cancer in you, and they're going to give you end up with a bag. Or you can go on this vegetable and water only diet. He looks at me like, a guy that's drinking wine and eating cheese and, and bread and meat every day. It's like, okay, well, he says, okay, I'll do it. And he did it. He was eating salads, eating a lot of broccoli, eating a lot of vegetables, and he did it. And he stayed away from all those other foods. And, after 30 days, the blood was all gone. And after about 40, 50 days, pretty much 2 months, all his symptoms were disappearing. He wasn't getting up at all at night. And pretty much, he's back to eating and drinking and doing what he used to do. But again, I believe that to me, cancer, again, is not a death sentence. It's just a warning sign saying, look, you got too much stress in your life, you're not eating the right diet, you're not eating the right food. You got to make a major change. And again, it's not a major change you have to do the rest of your life. Yeah, the lifestyle change you do with some of the things like with stress management, everything, but I mean the radical change has to be done radically initially. You have to go on a radical diet because everything feeds cancer but green vegetables. And the other things you have to go on a radical, you have to radically get rid of all your stress. People say, well, how'd you do that? Well, you have to go, to me it was, I had to go to God with that. So wherever you have to do it, you have to get rid of it. Forgive those people, let go of your anger, let go of whatever it is you have to get rid of it because again, the body can't heal itself. But once you do that, again, it's just the body will then get out of the way of the healing process. Because cancer are just cells trying to heal themselves but get disrupted in the process. And what the body does is create a tumor around it, just protect itself from that until you build the immune system up so the body can then take care of it and deal with it and get rid of it like it would all other bad cells in the body. And basically that's all it is. And then once you get rid of it, then maintenance is easy, pretty much. Again, if you're going to go through stressful times, make sure you eat the right foods. And if you're not going to, again, and if you're not stressed out, indulge, but again, in moderation, because what we eat, we're gonna feel it, no matter which way. So, pretty much, just getting back to that. Yeah, when we're eating foods, counting calories then also becomes unnecessary, because when, when I was having cancer, I was just eating a lot of vegetables, and, when you're eating the right foods, and, foods that don't have labels don't have calories, pretty much, because they're healthy, the body can metabolize them. So, pretty much, like I said, just managing stress. Stress is the biggest thing. And any questions? Yes.
When you changed everything in your household, what did you end up using for cleaning products? You said you got rid of all the toxins and chemicals.
Well, I stayed away from them myself, but, like I said, we still have some things like, I don't know, probably Windex and things like that.
Maybe
Nothing
for
really-
cleaning potatoes?
Like, yeah, cleaning stuff.
Well, we use small vinegar in our house.
We use vinegar though now, we use a lot more vinegar. We don't use like the what do you call it, Mr. Clean and stuff like that, and all those other programs,
The reason I ask is I know there's a group of cancer survivors that actually use a certain product, and I never did get the name of it. I don't remember if it was Win or something like that, but you actually order online, and they're all items that you could actually ingest. Nothing is toxic. I just wondered if you knew what that was.
Yeah, I really don't know much for it. Like I said, I didn't get too much into the depth of it. I just stayed away from just cleaning all the other side.
Yeah.
So that worked real good for me.
That was my department, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, and when I avoided the stress, like I said, my wife took the wheel. She was driving for me. So I mean, I just stay away from all that stuff. And like I said, that was how I did it.
If you
And
look up Dr. Mercola online,
Mercola,
yeah, he has a whole line.
Oh, he does?
His line, I believe, is cleaning. Dr. Mercola,
Yeah.
he doesn't,
I'm
he did the, he knows what he's talking about.
And again, I couldn't, the way I beat the cancer, again, I prayed for the wisdom of Solomon on what caused it, how to cure it, how to keep it from coming back. Because again, I can't live in fear, like, if I go to a restaurant, well, I can't eat anything at a restaurant because it's not organic, and it's, I've been out to a lot of restaurants. I was out a couple of days ago. And, again, sometimes I feel good, sometimes I feel real sick afterward. But, it depends on what I eat, but, I can still go out and enjoy myself and not worry about the cancer coming back, because again, it's not the food alone that gives you the cancer. And it's not the stress alone that gives you the cancer. It's the combination of the two. See, the problem with today's society is we already have the foods already out there. Now with all the GMOs and everything else and the carcinogens they put in the food, that half the recipe's there. So when we go through a stressful event in our life, no matter what it is, okay, an extreme stressful event, that's the recipe that starts the inflammation and begins the cancer process. And then the body, because it breaks down the immune system, it creates that perfect breeding environment for cancer to then grow. But when we get out of the way in the healing process and allow the body to heal by eliminating the stress, eliminating all those, feeding with all those toxic foods, the body will then rebuild itself and then heal itself once again. Yeah.
You had mentioned baking soda and the fact that it didn't alkaline your body enough. Are you still using that protocol, or are you relying?
I still do. Oh yeah, I still do it because like I said, I've been through a lot of stress, and there are days, and again, when I eat bad, like that one night, I was eating, I had some, linguine with clam sauce. Shouldn't have eaten it, and I had the worst indigestion that night. So what I do, I took half a teaspoon of baking soda, a glass of water, I drink it down, it settled my stomach. It's like the old-fashioned brioche, I guess.
And then you were using test strips of some sort to check
Yes.
different things, and was one of them also a pH level?
Right, it was a 10-parameter test strip. You get them on Amazon.
Okay.
Just think of 10-parameter urine test strips, and they'll pop up to like $15 for 100. And they'll test. It also tests, I think, the sugar and other things. But there's one in there for the microscopic blood,
Right.
and also the pH.
Okay.
And when I first started testing my microscopic blood, which is supposed to stay orange, it was turning green. And the greener it is, the more blood you have. And it was very green, it did certain things. So I needed that to be orange, and it never was. And then the orange one, which was the pH, was supposed to turn green, and it would just stay in orange. Staying at that 5, 6, it would never get even into the 7s. And again, it was, and then when I was doing the baking soda, it was getting up there, but then very short. And the next time I go to urinate, it would go back down again. So it was like, it wasn't, I couldn't keep it consistent. It wasn't until actually I started doing the whole protocol, the stress, you know, get rid of everything, and pretty much that, and doing the diet really strict.
Then you were testing your urine, and what would, if I may, that's a
Yeah.
personal question, what are you testing at now, doing these protocols that you lay out for
I'm always alkaline now. I'm usually about 7.5.
us? 7.5?
Yeah, I'm usually right in there. Once in a while, like I said, I'll go down to about 6, and then it's fine. It depends on what I eat. But then I just do a little baking soda and it's right back up and it stays there now. I've been pretty much staying up there, yeah. Yeah, well, never, real quick though, one day I was, you know, I'm doing all the right things and I'm alkaline in the morning, and then I was helping a friend out. We set up this tent and it was gonna start raining, and, you know, the wind's coming, and I'm like, we're ready to lose this thing, and I'm all stressed out, okay? I mean, really, really stressed out. And I hadn't eaten anything either, so I go and I went home to take a shower, and I test my urine, and I mean, it's acid, okay, major acid. So I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So I did a little baking soda, and I went back, and then I went to the party. Well, that night then, everything ended up okay. So I started, you know, there was all this food there, I started eating everything, I drank everything, I even had a couple glasses of wine. Went back that night, I tested it, it was alcohol. So, you know, because then, it's again, a lot of it has to do with our mood, you know, and our, you know, it depends on our stress level in our body, and that's whether or not, you know, whether or not we be alkaline or acid. So again, the food alone isn't gonna do it. And sometimes, like I said, baking soda, it's a temporary fix, but it's, you know, you gotta get to the root cause of the problem. And just like with cancer, you know, what's the root cause? The root cause is our diet and then our stress, because those are the two things that feed it. One question, yes?
Was there any doctors at all that referred to diet to you at all?
Yeah, I went and saw a holistic doctor, Dr. Todd Pesic. He's in Lyndhurst on Mayfield, Ford Road in Brainerd.
He was more of a naturopathic doctor?
He's a holistic, yeah, naturopathic doctor. He's a regular
And he's a
MD.
certified doctor, he is a certified doctor.
Yes, it is.
And I went to him because, again, I needed, he did, you know, he ordered all the blood work. We did all the blood work to see where I was deficient and what vitamins and minerals. He put me on a prolamine iodine. He put me on some other vitamins. I was doing vitamin C IVs. He gave me vitamin D injections. Just everything that I could to build my, you know, wherever I was nutritionally deficient, to help me build my immune system back up, so I can then, the body will be able to heal itself. Because what ends up happening is, when the immune system is compromised, it just inhibits the body from healing. The body just can't heal. And that's why, when I used to cut myself, even a paper cut, it used to take sometimes a month to heal that cut. Where now, if I cut myself, within a couple days, it's healed over. Within a month, or within a week, I can't even see it, it's gone. So, you know, it's amazing how quick the body then, again, will repair itself, but only in the right conditions. Any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Listen.
No, excuse me, I do have a question.
Oh.
So your books back here?
Oh, yeah, books.
Yes,
I
how much
have-
are they?
Pardon me?
How much are your books
They're
back?
$12 each and 2 for $20.
Okay, thank you.
So give us a couple minutes. We're gonna do a little bit of hard work and faith change right here. My stress level is probably at a 3.0 pH right now because of my issues with my computer, but I think we're under control. So, McKelly's gonna present next to give you some updates on how essential oils can become very helpful with any healing issues that you need to bring.
My name is Kelly Cruz, and I'm a wellness advocate for doTERRA Oils. I've known Teresa for over 10 years now, and I am very impressed with how she started to heal herself naturally. The company that I do with oils aids in natural healing. I am relatively new to essential oils. I started it probably about 2 months ago, and I've found a lot of benefits from it. I have to say, every oil I've tried has been incredible with what I'm looking to have them do. I have my family using them now, and they are seeing great benefits from them. Let me tell you a little bit about doTERRA. doTERRA International produces and distributes exceptionally high quality CPTG certified oils, which stands for Certified Pure Therapeutic Grade, through 1 million independent representatives worldwide. In addition to the premium line of essential oils that the individuals sell, they also have other products such as toothpaste, shampoos. You can make your own cleaning products with the oils, and natural supplements. How I started into this was, I, like most Americans, couldn't sleep at night. I would sit there, and on an average, I'd say I'd get up 2 to 3 times a night, and I'd get at the most 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and that was on a good day. I can tell you, I would take anything to fall asleep. I tried NyQuil, Benadryl, ZzzQuil, melatonin, and just about anything in between. I was desperate for sleep, no doubt. I felt tired and sluggish all the time, and I had heard about essential oils before, but I wasn't really sure where to start. So I ended up purchasing a couple of off-brands off the internet from a discounted site. I was excited when they came in the mail. I couldn't wait to try them. After 3 days of using it at night, I ended up with huge headaches every single day. The oil will say it's 100% pure, but it doesn't give you any supplemental information on it at all. That's one thing that is really important. My first experience with doTERRA, I took a yoga class at work, and the instructor had the class use an oil. She said, put it on your wrist, cover your eyes with your hands, and just breathe in deeply. Do small, short breathing exercises. It was so relaxing, I couldn't believe it. I loved it. I went up to her after class, and I asked her what it was, and she told me it was Breathe. She told me about who to talk to, and I did some research on the internet. I found out that these oils were 100% pure, and before I invested in purchasing any of these oils, I wanted to see for myself what they could do. I read on the internet, and I'm going to read this exactly what they say, that in order to be CPTG, which is Certified Pure Therapeutic Grade, essential oils represent the safest and most beneficial oils available in the world today. For an oil to be CPTG certified, the oil must be pure and natural with aromatic compounds extracted from the plants, free from fillers or artificial ingredients, no dilution active ingredients, free of contaminants, pesticides, and chemical residues. They have to go through rigorous testing, and they are sourced by a global network of leading essential oil chemists and their growers to make sure that they are raw plant materials and carefully harvested at the right time. I also, after doing some research, I found out that a lot of hospitals are starting to use doTERRA oils in their emergency rooms. They're doing it not only for their patients, but also for their staff. The studies are showing that by diffusing some of these oils, that their staff is less stressed, they have better attitudes, and they're more alert. There's even doctors' offices that are using these too. There's a product called On Guard that some of the doctors' offices are using, and with that, it helps build up your immune system. So a lot of them are starting to diffuse that or have their soap at their doctor's offices. I started out, I wasn't really quite sure what oil to start with, besides something to help me sleep. A lot of these oils that you see up here, they have multiple uses. So you can either use them by themselves, you can use them as blended. So I started out slowly. I decided I would try lavender on my feet at night. And I would crawl into bed, I'd put a few drops on the bottom of my feet, Well, I went and took a shower, I would diffuse it in my bedroom, and then I would even sometimes put it in my bath at night. There's so much more that lavender can do for you, but I found I had the best night's sleeps when I was using this, and I still to this day use it. It's hard to say what my favorite ones are, because I really do love all the products. Throughout the day, if I'm feeling any kind of stress with my job, if the kids are driving me crazy, I use peppermint. It actually calms me down. I'll put some on my wrist, I'll just breathe it in. I have a bottle sitting at work, and throughout the day, I'll take different sniffs of different bottles. People think I'm crazy, but it works. So I used to love candles. That's the other thing that I was doing. I was burning apple or cinnamon candles in my house. I do have pets, so instead of smelling a dog when they would come in from the rain, I loved to smell candles. And again, I was using them. Every day I would light up a candle after my dinner, and then I found out that most candles are made of paraffin wax, which creates highly toxic benzene and toluene when burned. Both are known carcinogens. In fact, the toxins released from paraffin candles are the same as those found in diesel fuel, and that can't be good for you. So I purchased a diffuser. That was my second purchase. And I found out, if you don't know what those are, you add a little bit of water, maybe 3 to 5 drops of oil, and you turn them on, and it diffuses a wonderful smell throughout your house. Those are free of all kind of chemicals. They help purify your air, and they also improve everybody's mood. Needless to say, I have several diffusers running in my house at any given time, and I know exactly what I'm breathing in. I use lemon, wild orange, lime, grapefruit, anything I can put in there. When I started seeing the benefits of what these oils could do for me, I started my family on them. My daughter is 19 years old. She has different types of medical issues. Some of them I think are solely in her head. She had a close friend commit suicide their first week at college. She had a really hard time getting over it. It was one of her very best friends. And to this day, around that anniversary, she always has a hard time with it. She talked to a counselor. We did all the right things that we could for her. We set her up with different doctors, and they did help her to a certain extent. But she suffers now from anxiety, which, her being away at college, leads to late night texts. I get text messages, phone calls from her, I'd say anywhere from 3 out of 7 days from her. She can't breathe. She has a stomach ache. It could be anything. She's having anxiety. So I started putting her on some of these different products. Now, instead of telling her when she calls me or texts me to take Pepto-Bismol and aspirin, Tums, I tell her to take Digestion. She takes a couple of drops, rubs it on her stomach, and believe it or not, she's feeling a lot better afterwards. I'll give her peppermint beadlets, because peppermint is really good for your stomach. She also has some leg pain. After 2 MRIs, we found out that medically there's really nothing wrong with her. She probably needs to be a little bit more active than what she actually is. So for her leg pain, I give her a deep blue rub. Again, all natural, does wonders for her. And of course, since she's away at college, and there's so many germs at college, I have her diffuse On Guard in her room every night. My son goes to college in Kansas, and he is one of those kids who gets distracted very easily. He can start a conversation, he'll be in the middle of the conversation, he'll start singing a song. From singing a song, he'll start doing paperwork, or he's just constantly moving. He talks endlessly about different subjects all the time. He never stays on track with anything. So he has a really difficult time focusing. I sent him back to school with a bottle of Intune to try out, and after a couple days, he was very skeptical about it because, of course, he's a strapping young man. He gave me the report back that he absolutely loves it, that it actually helps him keep focused when he's studying. So that's definitely a good thing for him. And my husband suffers from migraines. And he would take up to 12 Advil per day, Advil, Tylenol, whatever, Aleve. He'd take up to about 12 of them a day when he started to get these migraines come on. Recently, he tried a product called Past Tense, And I'm happy to report no Advil, no headaches for the last 2 weeks. If he starts to feel one coming on, he rubs it on the back of his neck, his temples, his forehead, and he's good to go. He was a real skeptic about some of these oils. Now he's a true believer. Other things that you can use oils for are cleaning products. I know somebody asked about those, and deodorants. I can tell you, I cannot pronounce half of these ingredients on this little deodorant bottle. So I decided that can't be good for you. And after doing some research on the internet, I found out they have aluminum in them, not good at all. I now make my own deodorant. You can buy these little containers through Aroma Tools. I use 4 ingredients. I use aluminum-free baking soda, cornstarch, coconut oil, and then an oil of my choice. This one happens to be lemon. I know these are natural. They are free of all chemicals. And the cleaning products, one of my cleaners that I actually have in my cupboard, which I am throwing away, I read it this morning because I wanted to talk about the cleaning products that you can make. It actually says, precautionary statement, hazard to humans and domestic animals. I've never looked at the back of a bottle before, never realized what that was. I now make my own cleaners. I started it actually this morning. I add essential oil, vinegar, and water. It's simple and it's safe. So it's safe for the pets, it's safe for me, it's safe for all of us. And believe it or not, I actually use essential oil on my pets. I have a couple of dogs, and the one dog was having a hard time. It would get up several times a night. I think it just wanted to get up. So I would literally take the bottle of lavender oil and have the dog sniff it, which he actually sniffed, and I swear it helped him sleep through the night. And the other dog ended up getting a couple of cuts on its stomach just from running through some brush. And I took Melaleuca and I diluted it, put it in a roll-on bottle, rolled it on the dog's cuts, and I never got, the cuts healed really good with no infections. And I have a lot of testimonials about that, so if anybody wants to talk to me after this, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. Essential oils have been used throughout history. Oh, there's my furry friends. There's over 200 references in the Bible about essential oils, incense, and ointments. The Greeks, Egyptians, Romans, Chinese, and Persian cultures all have used essential oils for a variety of wellness applications. In the Christian Bible, essential oils are mentioned over 200 times, like I said before. And who doesn't remember the gifts that were given to baby Jesus? Frankincense and myrrh. You can apply the oils in various different places. If you don't know where to put them, then definitely the bottom of your feet. You can never go wrong with that. They get into your bloodstream within 26 seconds. Actually, anything that you put in your body does. So what's in your products? Do you actually know when you're using all the perfume lotions and all the perfume that you spray on? Do you really truly know what's in those perfumes before you're putting them on your body? Because they do go into your bloodstream. And again, you can use these for aromatically. If you use Bengay, Aleve, Tylenol, or Motrin, you can substitute it with a deep blue rub. Oregano is really good to freeze away any kind of warts. And you can use it instead of taking NyQuil, Dayquil, Tums, Tylenol. Melaleuca, I actually woke up with an earache this morning. I put Melaleuca on a cotton ball and put it inside of my ear. The earache is gone. Peppermint has over, probably about 50 different ways that you can use peppermint, what it's good for. You can again put them on your body. You can ingest some of them. So you can put them in different kinds of drinks or you're juicing and diffusing. It's a great way of getting them into your system. So are you ready to change your life? You can start by one step at a time. And there's 3 simple oils, which I don't have them here, but I have this sheet. Lemon, lavender, and peppermint have over 101 tried and proven uses. If you don't know where to start, these are 3 really good oils to start with. Using essential oils can be both profoundly simple and life-changing at the same time. There is a large amount of information on the internet, so if you ever have questions, you can look on the internet. And my recommendation is, it's your life, it's your health, be empowered, change the way you think about medications, start making over your medicine cabinet with more natural and holistic things. And I think you'll find a great improvement in yourself. I do have a Modern Essentials book that's actually holding up the projector. So if anybody has an ailment and they'd like to know what oils might be good for it, then we can look it up in there. It's a great read, it's a great book if you've ever, at the library, maybe they have it here, you can check it out. Thank you. If you have any questions, does anybody have any questions?
You sell, you're a salesperson? You sell the oils?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have them here?
I do not have the oils here now.
How much is it?
They're all various kinds. They can start out at $10 and go up to, frankincense is one of the most expensive oils. It can go up to like $65. And again, there's oil blends, so they all range in different prices. But we can talk afterwards if you're, looking for something in specifics.
You said you used something for your son who was distracted. What was it?
It's called Intune. It helps him focus. Yeah, he rubs it on the back of his neck, and Teresa knows my son.
The name of that reference book again was?
It's called Modern Essentials.
Can you use the oil straight as an essential oil, or do you blend it with a carrier oil like almond oil or?
Depends on the oil itself. Some oils they do recommend.
Hi, everybody. My name is Teresa Dinello. I know several people in here, some people I do not know. I call this Nutrition Night because it sort of started off in my home in the evening. So that's where we're getting the night from. But wanted to do this talk and bring in a couple other people that would be able to provide some very good information. Can everyone, you guys can see, because I feel like I'm standing in the way. Okay, so briefly what I kind of want to go over is an introduction, pretty much about myself. America's currently, our health profile as we are today. Our standard treatment of care, which in my words is really more of sickness. Causes of disease, the immune system, alkalinity versus acidity in the body, diet, journey to healing. And if there's any questions at the very end. Some of this may be a little repetitive from what John reviewed in the beginning, but I'll try not to, go too long with some of that stuff. So a little bit about myself. I come from a large Italian family. There is no history of cancer in my family. My parents, both here today, have had perfect health. My grandparents have lived well into their 80s and 90s, so no history of any cancer. In May of 2013, I received the god-awful phone call that any person who's diagnosed with cancer could possibly get. I was told that I have stage 1, close to stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma in my right breast. I had gone in for my regular checkups. I've always been a model patient. I was always getting my mammograms, very religious about it, year after year. Would go into my my gynecologist. She would do her, her testing, the Pap test, all of that fun stuff. And I had just gone in to see her about 2 weeks before I get the phone call to go back. And she had done a breast exam and did not feel anything. I have not felt anything. I had gone in for the mammogram. It was May 2013. And sure enough, they had called me back. They saw a mass in my mammogram results. I went back in. They suggested I have an ultrasound, which I did have done. And sure enough, in the ultrasound, you can clearly see the lump. And not only that, my mother was with me at the doctor's office, and I'm frantically trying to find this lump. And my mind was all over the place. And I'm thinking, am I really feeling it? Is it my mind just going crazy? Lo and behold, it was there, hard as a nugget, the 5 o'clock hour. And from that point on, they had requested I go in for a biopsy, went in for the biopsy, and of course, the waiting game began. About 3 days or so, I get a phone call that said I tested positive for invasive ductal carcinoma. The immediate response was, well, I dropped to my knees, literally. My husband had to take the phone from me and talk to the doctor who recommended for me to get into a breast surgeon right away. So she gave him 2 names to call, and we went from there. From that point on, my life turned upside down. As you can possibly imagine, you just suddenly see death, you know, in the face of your life just changing before your eyes. And my father started sending me a couple of emails, you know, and because at that point on I knew I had a lot of thinking to do. I had a lot of decisions to make. I had a friend come over who had just completed 2 years into chemotherapy, radiation for her breast cancer, and from a small lump, same type of cancer as mine, she ended up having a complete mastectomy. And what scared me the most out of that whole thing was watching her, just seeing what she went through, just watching the treatments, what it did to her body, what it did to the hair loss, the lethargic all the time. So I wasn't, that's what scared me the most out of the cancer. So as my father sent me a couple of emails, I decided, you know what, let me look into these, you know. So I didn't really announce anything yet. I started reading and I started researching what he was sending me, and every one thing that I read led me to another thing to start researching. And that to me was what kept me going, because this information was at my fingertips. So I decided, you know, to keep going and keep reading, and to this day, I don't watch television any longer. I'm always in a book, I'm always reading something, I'm always looking up research articles, medical journals, and so forth. So this is where I'm at today. And where I'm at today, let me get to that point. As of January 30th, my father's birthday, as a matter of fact, I received news that there's no evidence of disease. I had several cancer blood work done, cancer markers tested, specifically for breast cancer, specifically for recurrence of cancer, and everything came back in the negative range. So I couldn't be happier. The lump that I had in my breast is no longer to be found. It has since diminished and diminished and diminished. And if I can pass my breast around the room to have you feel it, I would do it in a heartbeat. But take my word for it. I mean, I don't feel any healthier than I do today, so knock on wood. So does anyone know what this picture is? Very close. Okay. This is when Nixon signed the war on cancer. Yes, back in 1971, I believe. He declared the war on cancer, and how many millions of dollars our federal government was going to start pumping into the system to research the cause of cancer. So this graph kind of shows us, well, where did we end up with all of this? This actually takes us up to 2005, so it's a little outdated. But if we take a look at it, from 1900 up until 1970, we had a steady incline. And we can see after the signing of the bill that President Nixon passed, we had an even more of an increase on the cancer rates. And this is a chart for the cancer death rate, okay? So I don't have a chart I can show you on how many cancer diagnoses have actually increased from that time on, and I'm sure it would be much, much higher. So where are we today with America's health profile? Unfortunately, this is a sad picture. But 70% today of Americans are currently taking prescription drugs. 70% of American people. We have become a dependent nation on pills. And 50% are taking 2 or more drugs a day. We have an ailment, and the first thing we do is run to the doctor. we have our child has an ear infection, and I'm guilty of this. When my kids were babies, they had ear infections, they were always, the drop of a hat, took them in, and basically sending me home with an antibiotic, sending me home with ear drops. So we have become a dependent nation on pills. 4.3 billion prescriptions are filled. That's $374 billion on medications. The highest has been spent since 2001. This is where we're at in 2014, actually. 8 million Americans alive today have a history of cancer. And 1.2 million cases of cancer are expected to be diagnosed this year. So where, again, the war on cancer, where has it gotten us? We are by far the most affluent nation with disease. So America's health profile, we really are in a cancer epidemic today. In the 1970s, the lifetime risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer was 1 in 20. Today, we are at 1 in 8 for women in the United States, and that number is expected to increase. We're expected to increase by 70% by the year 2030. And this came right out of the medical journals from the World Health Organization in February 2014. These are astonishing statistics. So really, where are we? Where is America, what is going on with the healthcare system in this country? If you start looking at chemotherapy success rates, a 14-year study was done in the Clinical Oncology Journal on the cytotoxic chemotherapy to 5-year survival in adult malignancies. The study consisted of 22 types of different cancers. 154,000 Americans were in the study, as well as Australians, aged 20 and older. And out of that study, 3,300 out of 154,000 can be attributed to a success using chemotherapy. That equates to a 2% success rate in chemo. So we know that chemo is not working. Radiation is not working. You cannot cut out a disease. The medical and educational, or the medical nutritional system in this country, doctors are not adequately trained in nutrition. Today, if you see a doctor, their training is less than 19 hours. I highly doubt if it's even 19 hours today. This was in 2010. They were required to get 19 hours of nutritional training. The focus of their studies is on pharmacology, which is the pushing of pills, pushings of surgery, and toxic therapies. So why is this happening? Why do we see so many people today? We all know someone. Can anyone in this room say they do not know anyone who's been affected by a cancer diagnosis? Anyone? So we have to ask ourselves why. Why is this happening? Cancer is a $200 billion a year business. You have the Susan B. Komen Foundation that is basically promoting what is called pink washing. And I don't know if anyone has ever heard of pink washing, but it's basically the marketing strategy behind the Susan B. Komen Foundation. They have a walk, a run, a sit, and eat for the cure. Every possible option you can think of as far as how you, as a citizen in this country, can help someone who's fighting cancer. How can you help? By donating your dollars, of course. By investing in these products that are there to promote funds into cancer research. The diagnostics, the medical testing, the staff at these hospitals cost a fortune. Who's paying for all of that? The NFL, MLB sports teams, they're all about, wearing your pink cleats, wearing your pink football, wearing this, wearing that. And the sad part is, you have these foundations, such as the Susan B. Komen Foundation, they put absolutely $0 into funding research on non-toxic therapies, such as nutritional based, such as essential oils, such as cannabis, which is now on the forefront. I'm sure many of you have heard about, which is another medicinal plant that is making a lot of headway and controversy as well. But as you can see, the marketing strategies for the Susan B. Komen Foundation are, let's slap a pink label on a bucket of fried chicken and say, okay, you're donating to the cause. Eat your chicken because it's going to cause your cancer, but guess what? You're going to go ahead and give dollars to a good cause. So how did we get here? Well, leading causes of inflammatory disease, and not just cancer, but we have, diabetes, arthritis, high blood pressure, fibromyalgia. We have all of these diseases that are linked to an inflammatory response within the body. And a lot of them are caused by sedentary lifestyles. We don't move. A lot of us sit behind a desk, or we sit on our couch, or we just don't get ourselves active and moving. We have highly toxic diets. We have a lot of stress in our lives, as John touched on. And we have an extreme amount of nutrient deficiency. So yes, we know that stress is going to cause problems. Studies have proven how stress triggers cancer. Specific genes within each of us trigger stress hormones with stress hormone response imbalances and the lack of mobility. One thing, does anyone know why exercising is so important when you have, it's important when you don't have cancer, but does anyone know why it's even more important when you do have cancer?
Endorphins?
I'm sorry?
Endorphins release?
Yeah, endorphins, and I heard someone else.
Stimulates lymph glands.
Exactly. So we know that our bodies do not have a muscle that's actually pumping that lymph. So in order for the lymph system is our drainage system. It gets everything out. In order for us to keep that moving, we need to keep our bodies active and moving. That's why it is very important to get moving. And you don't even need to get to the point of strenuous exercise. Like sometimes people feel like, oh, you need to work out, you need to break a sweat, you need to work hard. Well, that causes stress on your body. So you want to be able to get yourself active enough so you can get the lymph moving. Toxicity issues. We have Roundup, pesticides, chemicals in our food. Lately, Dr. Oz has had a lot of controversy because he's been talking and coming forth with glyphosate, which is the key ingredient in Roundup, which is promoted by the Monsanto Corporation. So we will talk a little bit more about that, but we do have a lot of some great fruits and vegetables, but a lot of times those fruits and vegetables are loaded with pesticides, and you're taking all of that in. Our soil is contaminated as a result of crop chemicals. One of the things that we're depleted on, especially in this region, is the lack of iodine in our soil. Iodine is a critical element that we should have maintained within our bodies. Iodine at one point was always an added ingredient in baked goods. But in the 1970s, thank you to our FDA, they have removed iodine and replaced it with bromine, which is a carcinogen. Fluoride is another big myth that we've all been told. You need to have fluoride. You need to have fluoride for healthy teeth and gums. That is the furthest thing from the truth. The FDA has it labeled as a carcinogen. It is dumped into city water. It creates a whole host of toxic responses that your body will, eventually tell you. Mercury, aluminum, lead. We have the Dental Association promoting amalgam fillings. So again, you have a lot of toxicity there. Christmas lights, for example. I don't know if you ever read the little labels on a strand of Christmas lights, but they're loaded with lead, and people don't think about that because we're too busy decorating for the holidays. But again, these are little things that you have to think about. Skin toxicities, as Kelly mentioned, the lotions that we're putting on our body, the perfumes that we're putting on our body. Did you know that the FDA does not do any sort of inspection on any cosmetics. So the cosmetics you're putting on your face, the lotions, the nail polishes, the creams, the shampoos, the conditioners, none of that is regulated. That means manufacturers can throw anything in there, and then you're putting it on your body. The largest organ that we each have is our skin, and we're absorbing this stuff every day. In the polluted air. All dangerous. Nutrient deficiencies, GMOs and processed foods. Does anybody not know about GMOs? Everyone's pretty well informed on GMOs. Sugar consumption, soil nutrient deficiency, acidity versus alkaline diets. So again, if you have cancer, these are things that most likely you've already incorporated into your life. So what is a GMO? A GMO is a genetically modified organism, living organisms whose genetic material has been artificially manipulated in a laboratory through genetic engineering. So it sounds pretty bad. I wanted to show this brief clip to give you more insight on what GMOs typically are. Okay, it's on. Okay, just need to get the sound to work. Oh, I know why. 1 second. Might help when the mute button is not on.
That's my fault, sorry.
No, I did that, it's okay. Yeah, good. Sorry. for anyone who didn't know what effects GMOs can have, this here is some studies that were done in labs with the effects that GMO foods have. And as we know, lab rats tend to be the closest forum to humanity for studying any sort of research as far as the effects of how it would be on humans. This is what can possibly happen. This is one of the reasons why there is going to be a 70% increase of cancer in the next 15 years or so. So this chart here goes in line to, you know, how do we get ourselves more aligned to eating foods that actually support our immune system. And there's a lot of information on here, but John touched on this as well. We need to be sticking to diets that are more alkaline-based than acidic-based. As you can see, the foods that are most acid tend to be your meats, your cheeses, your processed foods, your sugary foods, your dairy products. These are all foods that create an acidic environment within your body. And to move over to a more alkaline diet does mean incorporating many more organic type fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So just to sum up, you know, some of the foods that we probably should start consuming less of. Typical things that are very easy, that our kids love to see when mom brings home and stock up in the pantry for school lunches and such. These are the foods that contribute to a highly toxic immune system, and they weaken the immune system, such as these. They're very quick and easy to feed your family, but it comes with a huge price tag, and you really don't notice it till later in life. Although we are seeing more and more children today being diagnosed with diabetes, and cancer in children is becoming an epidemic as well. So of course, being Italian, this is one of the things, you know, I had to give up. However, a great new discovery is the brown rice pasta that, you know, my family's hooked on now, and so I don't have to give up. You know, I do give up the cheese and the meatballs, that's gone, but everything else, you know, I can still enjoy that. And I know I'm eating a whole grain pasta. Again, meat, highly, highly acidic. That's very hard for a lot of people to give up. And I'm not saying to give it up. I'm not trying to tell people give up your meat, but cut back. You know, we consume far more meat than any other Western civilization. You know, one of the best books that I've read was the China Study. And Dr. Corbin Caldwell and Dr. Esselstyn, right here from the Cleveland Clinic, came together and created this powerhouse of a study that was done in China. And it actually encompassed a study on the poor communities, the poor cultures in China compared to the more affluent Chinese population. And what they were noticing is that cancer genes can actually be triggered on and triggered off based on the diets of these different lifestyles. And what they found in China was children were developing cancer at, you know, young ages just as much as the adults were in this study. But when compared to their counterparts that were living on a more humble diet, such as rice and beans and grains and vegetables, the cancer rates were not thriving. The cancer rates were extremely low. So it's a very great, it's an excellent study. Dr. Corbin Caldwell could not get enough credit for putting this massive study together, and it's unfortunate that his counterparts and his peers did not give him the due respect that he needed from this type of study. So if you ever want to read a really great book on how nutrition plays a role in our society and as far as the human genetics, that is an excellent book to read. Sugar is another huge contributor, huge contributor to cancer and any inflammatory disease. One of the first things that I learned, the very first thing I learned within 24 hours was I needed to eliminate all sugar. every possible way. I didn't touch fruits. I took sugar out of my diet completely, from the drinks that I drank, the foods that even metabolized to sugar, I eliminated from my diet. And I want to touch on this a little bit. My mother-in-law, she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1976. I believe she had it for 10 years before she had passed on. She was diagnosed with a small lump in her breast, such as mine, and they immediately went ahead and they did a lumpectomy, told her that the margins were clear and so forth. The cancer came back. She ended up going for radiation. She ended up having chemotherapy done. She ended up having a complete mastectomy. And I believe she had a double mastectomy, am I right? She had a double mastectomy because they talked her into prevention. So prevention in today's medical world is to cut off your breasts. Okay, that's prevention today. The most barbaric form of prevention I have ever seen. Needless to say, I'm sorry.
I said that's right.
Yes. Needless to say, my mother-in-law ate baked potatoes quite a bit. She ate her baked potatoes. She didn't put anything on her potatoes because really, what's wrong with the potato, right? You think of potatoes, you know, that's from the earth, it's great. However, the way potatoes metabolize in the body, they metabolize down to sugar. And your body burns that energy as a sugar fuel source. And unfortunately, sugar is the direct fuel source for cancer cells. So, unfortunately, she didn't have this information available to her. Today, we are lucky enough to have the internet to find information, to research this information of what causes cancer, what needs to be eliminated. Sugar is a direct contributor to not just cancer, to every inflammatory disease that's out there. Alcohol, again, metabolizes to sugar. Another bad thing. Probably the best thing you can have, but I did not have, was red wine. Because red wine does have resveratrol in it, which is an enzyme that is an antioxidant. I'm sure many of you have heard at one time that, you know, red wine has its benefits. It does, but it's not overloaded with benefits. It still metabolizes to sugar. If you do drink any alcohol, it's probably best to stick to wine because it, you know, tends to be a little more healthy. So, you know, what is it in our bodies that really move ourselves to wellness? You know, a lot of times today, our doctors are quick to cut us open, they're quick to radiate us, they're quick to chemotherapy us if you have cancer. And the cure lies within your own body. It lies within your own body. I'm not a doctor. I can't say certain things. Your body, what it means. The smart brain within your body is your immune system. And the reason why food is so important is because 80% of our immune system resides in our digestive tract. So if we are not giving our bodies what it needs, then we're going to, obviously, it will talk to us and tell us something's wrong, something is not responding well, whether we're breaking out, you know, with pimples, or we have sweats, or we can't sleep at night, or we have high blood pressure. It's all a direct manifestation of what is going in. So it's very, very important that we know. And part of, you know, my learning was to understand the intricate immune system. What is it made up of that gets us going and keeps cancer cells at bay? We're always developing cancer cells. Every one of us in this room has cancer cells. But what is it that actually kills these cancer cells? I, for one, several years ago, I decided to try Weight Watchers at work. And although I lost 40 pounds on it, I would never in a million years promote the system again, simply because they advocate for low-fat diet, sugar-free foods, fat-free foods. So their message or their marketing ploy is to basically say, you can eat whatever you want, continue eating what you want. we're just gonna allow you to look at the calories and the fiber, okay? And that's it. And they go off this point system. Okay, that's great, that's wonderful. But in hindsight, when I look back at my own medical records, I started doing Weight Watchers around 2007. And when I looked at my prior mammograms, you know, prior to that, up until the point I was diagnosed, I started noticing denser and denser breast tissue, okay? And that's one thing I would tell any woman in this room. If you're deciding that you still want to get mammograms, which I would never do again, I would do mammograms, but if you're deciding, get a hold of your records. Ask for your medical records and read them. They are not difficult to understand. Understand, and if I would have done that, I would have seen a pattern. If my mind would have been open enough, I would have seen a pattern happening to what I was putting, what I was eating, the foods I was eating. Then I was seeing, okay, why am I seeing denser and denser breast tissue through years? So, I mean, it's very important that we stay in tune and ask these questions, become inquisitive, become your own doctor. You know, I have a doctor, I see Dr. Todd Pesic as well as John, and I like him a lot, but I don't feel that he's my savior. You know, I feel that what I do when I leave his office is up to me. And what I do when I come home is up to me. What I do when I go to the grocery store is up to me. And he can provide me some insight, he can provide some test orders that he did, but at the end of the day, it's not about your doctor saving you. It's about you educating yourself to become your own doctor. So get to know your immune system. Pick up some books and learn what your immune system is about. There are some books out there that are not highly scientific to read. They're not difficult to comprehend, but they are loaded with information to help you reconnect with your body again. So what we want to do, we want to be able to pick up the right foods. Okay, so obviously greens, vegetables, these are loaded, these are alive foods. They are loaded with the enzymes that your digestive tract needs. They're loaded with probiotics that your body needs. And when you do make that shift, for me it was very difficult, switching over from, you know, a diet that I was eating chicken, I was eating my hamburgers. I wasn't real big on fast food, but I was buying the fat-free, the sugar-free foods. And I thought, how am I ever going to sustain myself eating this? You know, I mean, how is it, I'm going to be hungry an hour later. But when I went through my phase of detox, I was able to sustain myself because your body goes through this transformation. When you're going through the detoxification stage, and you know when you are because you feel like you're about to die, and you think it's not helping you. I went through the you know, the sweats at nighttime, hair loss, unbelievable amounts of hair loss. This is nature's chemotherapy, in my opinion. I just felt lethargic. I felt very tired. I'd come home from work. There were times I came home and I had breakouts on my arms, on both arms, and I would show my kids, you know, what is this? And like, all I can equate it to, every symptom I had, I equated it to detoxification. My body was releasing the toxins that were stored. I went, within 24 hours, I did a radical change. So my body was giving me a radical response. So these are the foods that I did. And did start juicing. Yes, it was very, very difficult to start juicing because your taste buds are not used to it. You know, it's very hard to get yourself acclimated to kale and broccoli and spinach. Because I didn't even throw in an apple in the beginning. It was all vegetables. Nutritional supplements. Again, the word supplements. A lot of times people tend to think, okay, I'm just going to take a handful of vitamins. Okay, well, we have two problems. What is the quality of the handful of vitamins that you're taking? And how does taking a handful of vitamins compare to actually eating a live food? You know, the raw enzymes, the supplements that you're taking in do not nearly compare to what you're going to get out of a live food. And another myth that we all tend to hear about all over the news, the sun. Okay? The sun is not your enemy. The sun is your friend, within reason, like everything else. You want to have sunshine. It creates the vitamin D hormone. So we want to have as much sunshine as much sunshine as we can get. You know, not fry ourselves. Green teas loaded with antioxidants. Again, pick good quality teas. The good quality stuff isn't going to be cheap, I'll tell you that. And you can go and find Lipton green tea in the grocery store and pay $2.99 for a jug this big, and read the label. That's all I can tell you. Loaded with sugar, loaded with words you can't even pronounce. Good quality teas, you can find them at Heinen's, in any health food store. They're very beneficial. And again, going back to exercise, get out there, get your lymph moving, get moving. So the journey to healing, knowledge is powerful. We live in an era today that allows us to have information at our fingertips. We can click on our laptop computer at our kitchen table, laying in bed. We have tablets today. We have ease of access of information at our fingertips. Ignorance is a choice when it comes to how we are today. We have that opportunity. My mother-in-law in 1976 did not have the opportunity of internet. She was living off of her encyclopedia set to try to figure out why she developed breast cancer. And she was on to something. She started learning about Laetrile, which is also known as vitamin B17. And she was on to it. My husband's cousin was talking to me about it, a couple of years ago, and she was telling me how, Antoinette was learning about Laetrile. But unfortunately, the resources weren't available to her, on a whim. She was raising 4 children, so it wasn't very easy. The 3 Ds, dedication, discipline, and determination. That's how I was able to come up with, what gets you through a cancer diagnosis or any sort of disease reversal that you want to do it. Cancer is a disease of the mind before it is of the body. If you believe in your mind that you have cancer and you're going to die, then that's what's going to happen. But if you believe that you're going to heal yourself, and I mean really believe, like waking up every single day and telling yourself you're healthy, you're doing great, you're feeling wonderful, you're going to believe that. Your body's going to follow suit. Your mind has the the strongest impression on your health, more than you would ever know. It's so important to have a positive mindset. Avoid the garbage in, the garbage out. Again, strengthen your body by eating the right foods, drinking the right beverages, pure, clean water. Very important. Address the toxicity. Get to know Mother Nature. One of the things that I do, other than the winter months, I actually go up to Chapin Forest, off of Route 6, and I go mushroom picking. And I look for turkey tail mushrooms. And I actually came home, my husband came with me last year, and we came home with 2 big bagfuls of turkey tail mushrooms. And I brought them home, I washed them, I laid them out to dry, and once they were dry, I threw them in my blender. And I crushed them down to a powder, and I made tea out of it. And does it taste good? No, but you know what, my taste buds are forever changed. I still haven't had sugar other than natural fruit. I'll eat low glycemic fruits today, but I don't eat any added sugar, no cookies, none of that stuff. And so I incorporated that, and it's been very helpful. I've been doing a lot of reading about these types of mushrooms, very medicinal. So get to know Mother Nature. You'd be surprised what grows out there in the woods is really good for you. The weeds that grow under sidewalk cracks, very good for you. Purslane is one of them. Dandelion is another one. These things that grow, that Mother Nature provided for us, are by far the most beneficial, the most nutrient-based greens that we can possibly eat. Get moving. Again, get yourself out there. Go for that walk. Beautiful day like today, you're stuffed in here listening to me talk, but go for a nice walk after this. Readjust your focus on life and be happy. Don't sweat the small stuff anymore. I used to get so irritated with my kids. I would come home from work at 5 o'clock, And my immediate stressor was, what am I gonna cook for dinner? You know, that was, you know, I have 3 kids, I have a husband, he's self-employed, all I have, you know, my job that I work at 40 hours a week, come home and think about, what am I gonna do now? Every single day, for how many years now? So I had to change my mindset of how I started thinking about things. If that means I'm not gonna sit down and have the Brady Bunch family dinner at 6 o'clock, then I'm not gonna do it. You know, if we're gonna sit down and have dinner at 8 o'clock at night, we're gonna do that instead. And I'm not gonna sweat the small stuff. So it's how I look at things. I changed my outlook on life. And one thing I haven't mentioned in here is you just have to be thankful. You have to be thankful to Him. Just be thankful because there is a God, and I'm of Catholic descent. I know we have, whether you are a religious person or not, but you have to give thanks, and He answers you. That's all I can say about that. So if you're looking for one person who can change your life, it's not your doctor, it's not your friend, it's not your husband, it's not your kids. It's you. They're the only person who can make that change. And you have to be ready to do that. And one thing that I did, part of my healing journey, was to surround myself with a positive network. I had a lot of disbelievers who didn't want to believe, or they were too afraid to believe the path that I was going down to heal myself from cancer. And unfortunately, some of those people were family. And it was very difficult for me. It was really hard because part of what you need to do to heal is to remove the stress from your life. But that was creating a stress for me. So I had to find a way, and it took me a long time to find a way, but I had to isolate myself. I had to remove myself from the negative energy. And unfortunately, that happened to be with family members, but in hindsight, I can understand why they felt the way they did, because they were afraid for me. They were afraid that I was, off on the deep end, doing something completely irradical, because our society is so conditioned into 3 ways of curing cancer, and it's a very far stretch from a cure. So if you are not one of those people that is being cut open, being radiated, or chemotherapy, then you are a total nut job. So then I'm happy to be that nut job, and I'm grateful that I turned out to be that nut job, because the decision I made healed my body. And I feel better today than I ever have. And I want to give thanks to my mom and dad, because having your parents supporting you throughout this ordeal is huge. Having your husband and your kids supporting you is huge. And one of the things that my mother took me to was to meet John Marma. And she remembered reading his story in the newspaper. And I was at that point, at that moment in my life, that I didn't want to meet anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wanted to isolate myself in my home and maybe just get myself on my computer and see what I can find. But she dragged me to his store at the time. And I didn't even want to get out of the car. He came out of the car to talk, out of his store to talk to me. And we've developed a bond since then, and he's been my mentor, and I want to thank him for that. But at the end of the day, no matter who it is you have around you, it's great to have that love and support, but it's even more important to have that inner strength to just keep going. Because there's days that you just flounder, and there's days that you just pick the pieces up and you keep going. And I haven't had a tear shed in several months. I've been very happy, as a matter of fact, so I apologize today for my emotions. But that's pretty much how it's been for me. So that's all I had. Kept you guys here for a while, but that's it.